Dear colleagues from the African higher education community, I bring you warm greetings from the Secretariat of the Association of African Universities, AAU. I have come to you this time to briefly update you on the strategic intervention of the AAU so far, resulting from the outbreak of the novel coronavirus, COVID-19. Let's start by an overview of AAU business and higher education institutions' challenges. The AAU activities during this period of closure of its secretariat in Accra has been virtual, using online tools to coordinate and schedule regular meetings among staff to implement our work plans in order to help the African higher education community respond positively to the COVID-19 pandemic. As we all know, shutdowns became inevitable across the world, but most sectors, including the higher education subsector, were ill-prepared for that. The truth is that before COVID-19, higher education institution challenges already existed. These include poor ICT connectivity and relatively high cost of bandwidth, delays in integration of technology-supported learning solutions, massification of student enrollment, unreliable power supply, limited funds for higher education institutions, and short supply of qualified lecturers, professors, and researchers, among others. Unfortunately, these existing challenges have been exacerbated by the closures of our educational institutions. Now, how AAU is responding to support member institutions. The AAU is leveraging its mandate as the voice of African higher education to engage in advocacy, compilation and sharing of relevant information, hosting of virtual discussion for university leaders and academics, and establishment of multi-stakeholders dialogues and partnerships to respond to the coronavirus pandemic. We have focused on regular communication to our member universities, targeting the vice chancellors, rectors, presidents, and other senior leaders in order to support them as they strategize to keep the teaching and learning doors open. Specifically, the Association of African Universities Secretariat has so far done the following. 1, we have shared a statement on the pandemic in Arabic, English, French, and Portuguese. This can be found on the AAU website titled COVID-19 Resources page for African Universities. 2, we have followed up with an AAU solidarity message to the higher education community in Africa in audio-visual format on our social media platform. 3, we have appealed to African governments to support African higher education institutions and to use this COVID-19 pandemic as an opportunity to build more resilient educational institutions. 4, we have sent a brief update to African higher education development partners. 5, we have conducted a survey to find out how African universities are responding to the pandemic and are using the results to tailor our support for the universities. From the survey, we have categorized the challenges of African higher education into 8 as follows. Limited preparedness for online courses, the digital divide that is affecting students living in unconnected areas, broad infrastructure challenges, lack of e-learning platform, handling of large numbers of students online, limited commitment of staff and students to online learning, funding challenges, and infection risk. Following up, 6, we have partnered with the UbuntuNet Alliance, the West and Central Africa Research and Education Network, WACREN, the Arab State Research and Education Network, ASREN, and National Research and Education Network, NRENS, in Africa, to issue a joint statement calling for investment to support the development and strengthening of campus networks and research and education networks infrastructure. 7, we are in partnership with eLearning Africa and Wiley Education Services to support African universities to expedite their migration to online education. 8, on 30th March 2020, we held a webinar for 100 African higher education stakeholders on effective integration of online education in African universities. 9, we held a second webinar for member universities, CEOs, themed Vice Chancellor's Dialogue, Keeping African Universities Learning Doors Open, on 14 April 2020, that attracted 90 attendees. 10, we jointly organized an AAU Africa ERT webinar series number 1 on 28 April 2020. 11, we have followed this up with a second AAU OER Africa webinar on 30th April on what to teach during campus closure. This attracted 307 participants. 12, we are on track to implement other strategies that will mitigate the impact of COVID-19 on higher education system in Africa. In conclusion, it is clear that COVID-19 is transforming the African higher education sector in ways that we never imagined. It is revolutionizing the online remote learning landscape. It is invigorating universities' crisis management strategies. It is reviving multi-stakeholders partnership for African higher education institutions, and it is impacting on students and staff mobility programs. But despite the threats and devastations of this pandemic, let higher education institutions in Africa look into this for opportunities to reform our systems for efficiency and effectiveness. The Association of African Universities will continue to serve as the voice of higher education in Africa and help you deliver on your core mandates of teaching and learning, research, and community engagement. I thank you for your attention.